every budget is, will the government raise taxes? Will it lower taxes? Now, it's important to understand that the government can only tinker with taxes, particularly lower taxes, when the government has enough resources in its kitty. Today, unfortunately, the government's kitty is almost completely empty. Why? Because as we know, in the context of the pandemic, the Indian economy is slated to contract by 7.7% this year. Now, when an economy is contracting, clearly tax revenues are not going to grow. At the same time, the demand on government's finances are much more. Look at the kind of vaccine rollout that the government will have to do. We're a country of 1.3 billion. Now, if you want to give vaccines, ideally you should give them free. Then look at the kind of money that the government will have to spend, because vaccine is a public good. That means if I get vaccinated, it benefits my neighbor almost as much as it benefits me. So government will have to spend a huge amount by way of public health care. Even if you say that, okay, the better off people go to private sector and pay for their own vaccines, the cost in terms of the vaccine rollout itself will be huge. At the same time, income levels have fallen. Many people have lost their jobs. So the government has to do something by way of income support. Now, if it can do this income support while creating assets, that's something like the Manrega in the rural sector, building roads, bridges, any kind of construction activity in the urban and non-rural areas, it will be killing two birds with one stone. It will be creating infrastructure, at the same time providing jobs to the unskilled, those at the bottom of the pyramid. So the government needs money for two things. One, for the COVID vaccine rollout. Two, in order to give income support. And if this income support can be clubbed with investment in some kind of infrastructure, it would be killing two birds with one stone. So the government has huge demands on its expenses, much less revenue, particularly tax revenue, which is why this talk of disinvestment becomes so critical. So remember, every budget has to be framed against the context of the macroeconomy. When the economy is growing at 8 or 9%, the government can afford to spend liberally, it can afford to cut taxes. It could also think in terms maybe of even increasing taxes if some people are growing very rich. But when the economy is not doing well, the government has to walk a tightrope. It needs to kind of think, where do I get money and how do I spend as conservatively, but in a way that I get maximum bang for the buck. So it's going to be a very tough call for Nirmala Sitharaman. And even though she has talked about presenting a budget like never before, in fact, her hands are tied. So I think it's important that all of us in this country tone down our expectations. Remember that she is battling to do her job as skillfully, as successfully as she can. And maybe if all of us, every Indian paid his taxes honestly, she would not have such a tough job. Remember also that indirect taxes, which is what every Indian pays, are now outside the purview of the finance minister. These are decided by what is known as the GST Council, in which the finance minister is only the first amongst equals. The other members are all state finance ministers. So basically what the finance minister has at the central level is direct taxes and some kind of excise tax, customs duty, etc. And of course, as I said, she can borrow, she can opt to print money, and of course, she can raise taxes. Raising taxes, I think at the present juncture is almost a complete no-no. She would not want to do that. You do not want to hurt sentiment, particularly at a time when the need is to boost consumption. So all in all, I think one can only wish Nirmala Sitharaman all the very best and tone down, temper our expectations, remembering that this is going to be a very tough call for any finance minister.